31. Perfect. Thank you, Phil. All right. So welcome to the School Building Committee. At 6:31 p.m. we'll start our meeting. So the meeting's called to order 6:31. First order of business, present to speak. So if there's anyone on the call and you'd like to speak, please state your name and your address, and we'd love to hear from you. One quick thing, if you're not speaking, if you could just kindly mute yourself, that would be great. All right, and if you'd like to speak, just unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear from you. We'll give you a minute. Is there anybody in the audience that present to speak?
No one in the room. There's someone in the room, but no one in the room that wants to speak.
Okay, it looks like James has his hand up, so we'll go to James. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. James Marshall, 46 Fisher Hill Road. I'll ask you humor me for a second, but I wanted to, I guess, just call something up that I feel is important. And bear with me because I don't like this is purely speculation at this point, but you know, I think it's worth noting because it's worth being prepared as you begin to discuss what this new school is. So there is some speculation out there that there is the potential for this committee to be proposing property that is owned by a family member of the committee as a proposed site for the new school. So again, it's speculation, but I think, you know, it rang true enough for potential that I think it's worth being prepared for. And again, if it's not true, then I've only wasted a minute of your time. But if it is true, then you've got time to prepare, because I think it's important that there be a solid response, you know, noting that the consideration of both a new site and a potential letter of intent and evaluation of an existing facility has been done with appropriate due diligence. You know, otherwise I worry that as somebody who supports, you know, a new school, I worry about the next 4 months of discussion could be about speculation and the process rather than the merits of the new school building itself. So I just would urge you to, when you go public, whenever that may be, just be prepared for those questions and have solid answers behind them. That being said, I look forward to the meeting tonight, and I look forward to the presentation next week. So thanks, everybody.
Great, thanks, James. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on. Chairperson report. So we had a busy week this week, sending out a few items to the building committee. One of them being the outreach presentation that we're going to hear tonight. The other one is the presentation that was prepared by Colliers for the committee's review that was sent out last week. There is a whole other week to take a look and see if you have comments, and those have to get to us probably by when, Scott? What would you say, Monday? Does that give you enough time to make any edits if you received it by Monday?
Yeah, I would say by Monday prior to noon.
Okay. And then I also sent an email to the Board of Selectmen just confirming the intent of Center School, which was brought up in our last meeting. So I just want to give you guys an update. Everybody was copied on all three of those items. If you have any questions for me, just respond back in the email and I'll be happy to answer them for you. And also one item that we did talk about last week was requesting proposals for further development of concept plans. So we are going, you guys all have that presentation now. I encourage everybody to look closely at what is in those slides with the plan that's showing the existing and the new. And if you have questions, we can certainly discuss them. And regarding the proposals, Scott will give us an update later on in the meeting. And yeah, I think that was it. Just a reminder on the comments. And actually one more thing. The Board of Finance, if you guys don't know, it did go back to the Board of Finance for the additional 100,000. And the Board of Finance did approve it, and we're waiting to have a town meeting set up for the final approval by the town for the additional 100,000.
Catherine, this is
Yes.
Erica. If I can give you an update at 5:30, the Board of Selectmen held a special meeting to call a town meeting. The appropriation of the $100,000 was in that call. So the town meeting is planned for Monday, November 14th at 7 p.m. at the Old Town Hall.
At the, where? I'm sorry,
Old Town Hall.
Old Town Hall? You were cutting out just a little bit. I'm sorry. So November 14th, Old Town Hall, 7 p.m. So that is going to be for the town vote, or the town meeting for voting on the additional 100,000 that we so desperately need.
There are 3 items on the call, and that's one of them.
All right, perfect. Thanks for the update. All right, let's move on to approval of the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes also went out to everybody from the October 19th meeting. So is there a motion on the floor to approve the meeting minutes of 10/19?
I move to approve the minutes of October 19th, 2022 as presented.
Thank you, Erica. Is there a second?
I'll second them. Anne?
All right, any discussion? I can't see everybody too well, so if you guys in the room, just let me know if somebody's got their hand up. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay,
And there were
let's take a vote. All in favor of approving the SBC meeting minutes of October 19th, 2022, say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries, minutes approved. Next item, communications. I have not received anything. I don't know if I haven't received anything to report on this. Next item, subcommittee reports. We have 3 subcommittees. Our communications, land assessment, and finance. We'll quickly go through those. If you guys have met, just give us an update of when you met and what you discussed. If you didn't meet, just say we didn't meet, no update. So communications.
Yes, Phil and I spoke, and Phil created a poster announcing our meeting for next Wednesday, the 9th. It's been out on Facebook. Please share it whenever you see it go by so that it reaches all of our residents. Also, we have put some posters in the library, the post office, Kids Kingdom, Willington Pizza 1 and 2, Dollar General, the mobile. We put them everywhere, hopefully that everyone will have a chance to see and feel welcome to attend the meeting. It also went home with the school email, and I hope with the Willington email as well. Erica? It did.
last week.
Excellent.
It went on the website, and it gets distributed to those who subscribe, and it also went on the town's Facebook page.
Excellent, thank you, Erica. So if anybody has any other ideas or ways to share it, we'd like to reach everybody, so we can have everybody attend. Thank
How
you.
about patch?
Patch?
Stafford Willington patch.
Okay.
Great,
Thank
thank you. Thank you, Anne. That's
No
excellent.
pressure.
All right, land assessment. Subcommittee.
No meeting since our last meeting.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Finance.
No meeting.
And I just want to give a shout out to Peter for supporting the request to the Board of Finance. I saw that you were in the meeting and supporting and offering them the report. So thank you for that.
Catherine, can I make a suggestion for finance? When we go to the town meeting, could we have available a list of how we have spent the first 100,000 or whatever portion of that we have spent or encumbered? I think the residents asked for that last time, so if we could have that
And we have
available.
it,
You have
and
it.
you have it too.
I know, but could we have it available?
Now, it
at
might
the-
change slightly if we pay Scott some more, I
But,
suppose.
so I think an up-to-date
Yeah.
one, and we can pull a report, we
Up-to-date,
can ask for a report on Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
I think that's a good point by Ann to have, as up to the minute information as we can to answer any questions, that folks have.
Thank you.
So is that something that we'll make copies of and give to the people that are voting that night, or?
I think I'll do that.
I think that's a good idea. Erica, is that, can you make copies? or-
Yeah, if that's what the, Catherine, is that what you'd like, is for us to have, printed copies for folks?
I guess-
Or-
I guess more than anything, just something in their hands, whether it's virtual or email or something that, because I think that was precisely the reason why it didn't get voted on last time, was they just didn't know how the money was spent, how much was left, and why do we need it? So I think if we had a stack of them on the table when people come in, and let them choose to pick it up or not,
I'll make sure we have those.
Thank you. All right, thank you for the updates. Old business. We'll jump to Collier's Owners Project Manager update. And Scott, if you could just give us a quick update. I know you sent the email to everybody with the update on the cost proposal for the added request for further concept development on the plans, the options. So if you could roll that into your update, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Scott Pellman from Colliers. So I'm going to start out. Phil had provided copies of the test fit for Hall Memorial School. And again, that was confidential, and Phil laid out the reasons why I'm not wanting to, publicly have plans of any of the school buildings, out there. But just a little bit of background behind that. What Phil and I did is we spent quite a bit of time looking at the three existing floors that would remain after the demolition was done of the building, looked at the ed spec, and then put in what we felt were appropriate program spaces with adjacencies, things that made sense educationally, and fit as much of the ed spec as we could into the existing Hall Memorial School. Once that exercise was complete, what I did is I went into Phil's ed spec and I took all of those spaces that we were able to fit into the existing building out of the ed spec. So then we had a remainder of, this is what we're going to need for new additions, new area to add back into the building. What I then did is I looked at it from a code standpoint and prioritized and identified spaces that really should be on an at-grade level. As we've talked about in the past, pre-K 1, pre-K, K and 1, you really don't want the smaller, more fragile students traversing stairs. There's actually code provisions. You can sometimes work it out when it's into a hillside, but again, we took it from a conservative, very safe standpoint. Those are the spaces we want to have on the lowest level, along with the media center that would be used by all the students, art that would be used by all the students. That area resulted in a footprint of approximately 21,000 square feet. Then the remainder of the area, the classrooms for 2nd through 6th grade, because we were able to get 7th and 8th grade into the Hall school after, again, all of the demolition of a number of portions of the building. Looked at the area, and it would be a 2nd floor addition of approximately 16,000 square feet. So those were the concept plans that were provided to the committee, just to show you the thought process of what, once we do the demolition, what could fit into the existing building, and then what those resulting additions would be. And, it changed from our very initial thoughts because of the suggestion to demolish the 1950s 2-story academic wing, which results in either area that could support a future addition if you see growth within the district, or area where you could place an auditorium if the townspeople so choose to support an auditorium to be added on to the facility. So, recognizing the fact that we can't really bring up any of the drawings, did everyone sort of understand the logic or the approach? And before I go on a little further, is there any questions on that? Catherine, you're muted if you're.
Sorry about that. Can I just ask a question, just based on the terminology? You had called it a test fit. Is the part that you're referring to the slides that were part of the presentation that the whole group got?
No, Phil sent a separate email marked confidential because it did have, as part of that email, plans of the existing facility, which they do not want published openly
Is that in the
for
folder?
safety reasons. And that had it was the concept plans, putting the ed spec, what we could fit and what made sense to fit as far as educational program into the existing Hall Memorial School, if that was utilized as option 2.
Okay, why don't we first ask the committee if they've had a chance to see it, because honestly, I missed it. It looks like it was in a folder, a confidential. Phil, was that the information that was in the folder that was part of that same email?
Yes, there was the presentation, and then there was a second folder that had the drawings that, again, are what
Okay.
Phil spelled out in his email.
All right, so let's ask the committee if they've had a chance to look at the plans in the folder.
I did.
Yes. I eventually did, but need some more time to digest it.
I also have a number of comments on it, but
Me too.
I can't find that file on my little tablet here.
So it sounds like we might need a little more time to digest it, or does anybody have questions about what you've seen?
Well, I do have questions. I just don't have my notes here.
Okay, anybody else have questions?
I do as well when the time comes.
Is it this time for questions?
Time is now, so just raise your hand if you're on the phone, raise your hand, but if Erica, if you could kind of whoever has their hand up, Peter, if you want to go first.
Indicated they have questions, but they don't seem to have them with them, so I mean,
I do.
yeah, I mean, this is the time we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So Peter does.
I'll start with one, if that's okay.
Ralph was before me.
On one concept I saw, Scott, you had showed the locker room on the adjacent to the gym that's being demolished, yet on one of the slides, I see the locker rooms in place.
No, the current locker room is over 1,700 square feet. And it projects out much further from the existing building. So to incorporate the new bus loop drop-off road and separating that from the parent drop-off, and to have
Okay.
enough room for the parent drop-off to function with the existing parking area, we're demolishing the 1,700 square feet because we don't need all that area. And we're building new locker rooms specific to the ed spec that are 800 square feet.
Okay, I get it.
Peter?
And again, this is just a concept and a proposal put together to test how a building might fit on that site. Again, it is not the ultimate solution. I'm sure if you hire an architect, they will have all kinds of other ideas. It is one idea, one solution to show that it would work.
Peter?
Two questions. The first specific, my sense in reviewing it and from your comments now, Scott, is that you're struggling to fit in everything that Mr. Stevens would like from the ed spec on the existing site. That's somewhat of a challenge. So what I'm wondering is why we can't go 3 stories instead of 2 stories to eliminate that issue and further compact our space usage to have future expansion or other needs rather than take up space with single-story wings. My second question is more 10,000 feet. I'd like to see this proposal revisited with the school completely vacant and what that impact would be on cost and schedule.
Can I ask what you mean, like using swing space and working on the building, because if it's completely vacant,
Then swing space would have to be elsewhere.
so you're suggesting swing space?
Elsewhere. I want to have the option, the same option that the new school proposal has, where it's not encumbered by that cost, because I think it's creating a.
Well, I think to properly evaluate that, then you would have to determine where the swing space is, how much dollars or renovation or modifications you would need to make to that swing space to be able to make it function as a school. So, you know, you're asking for something to strip out a lot of costs, but not providing parameters of what the additional costs would be for swing space and potential rentals, potential fit out of that area. And I'm certainly, I'm unaware of any building within the town that might be able to serve that function, but certainly would be open to exploring that if you could make a recommendation.
As with this committee, I think that'd be a great topic on one of our agendas.
So can I don't believe we have a space in town that we could move a school's worth of children into. If we did, I think that would, you know, potentially cut the cost, right? Because it would cut the time frame. I don't know that we have a physical space in town. Do you have a suggestion in town that maybe?
I can think of numerous possibilities, but I'd like to have a full discussion of it, not just throw out random ideas.
Well,
So
I
we
guess-
need roughly, even if
Can I
we
just
squeeze
interject for a second here?
14 classrooms, right?
My notes say we have 22 in Center School for my tour.
Yeah, can I just interject? Because there's two things here. Sounds like Peter wants to have an agenda item, perhaps in our next meeting to talk about it. But I'm kind of unclear with the second question that you had, Peter. What is it that you were asking? Because you started to ask it.
I can answer the question, Counselor. I'd like to have the cost identified and separated, recognizing what the swing space cost burden represents for the reconfiguration project. So that's clear.
So you're asking about what is the cost of the swing space during renovation?
No, I'm asking what this project cost if swing space was not at Hall School.
Can I
Oh.
ask a question?
To try to shorten up the schedule?
Cost impact, we're working around students, and schedule impact, which also involves cost and time.
Okay, well we could certainly talk about that. Was that your
I
second?
don't think that's hard to do.
No, I think that's, yeah, it's definitely worth a discussion. My question is, you had said something about if the school was vacant. If Hall was vacant, you asked a question about that, and I was just trying to understand what you meant.
What I meant was that's how the cost should be defined. The project should be valued on the basis of the building being vacant as a potential option to present to the community.
How would we do that? I'm just,
Well, the swing space.
Right, Ralph has his hand up, Catherine.
yeah, well, my question hasn't been answered, so I'm just trying to understand what he's asking. So you're saying vacate the building and,
Under the swing space that hasn't been identified and probably doesn't exist.
Well, it's your opinion.
oh, you're saying if we had an alternative to empty out the school and teach somewhere else under swing space?
Yes.
Correct.
Oh, okay, all right, I get it now.
Peter, you believe there's a space in school? I mean, I guess this is the time for that kind of discussion. I think, like, if you believe there's a space and we can identify it, why not do that now? It's vital
It's
to the
not on the
conversation.
agenda. That could be a long discussion. And I would defer to Catherine on that.
I think it's worth talking about. I'm not sure like how we would fit it into the meeting now unless we put it on the agenda. I mean, I don't know if it's too late to add it now, but
Catherine, could I speak, please?
who's that?
Ralph?
Okay. I can't see a lot of the hands and stuff if you guys are
All right,
raising.
then I'm just going to speak up when I feel it's appropriate. And
Well,
there's
if Eric could just let me know whose hand is up, that'd be great.
All right, let me restate Peter's suggestion in a different way, which is what I think he's after here. If we were to revisit Scott's assessment of costs for Hall, without the need to accommodate students simultaneously with construction, there's going to be two implications. One is cost, the other is overall duration. And if we looked at the cost differential for approaching it in that manner versus trying to do everything simultaneously, which is obviously going to take longer, that monetary amount of differential might help us with finding swing space. And I think Scott's got all the line items for the cost, but he needs to rearrange and back out the appropriate ones for a shorter duration at Hall School without escalations for another year of construction. And whatever other accommodations would have to be made to separate construction from student population. Because those things would be eliminated. Looking at the cost differential, then it gives us some idea of what monies would be available to make arrangements for some kind of swing space. Scott, do you understand what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Ralph. I mean, in essence, you're looking to say, how much money would we have if we were able to find swing space and then turn that swing space into an appropriate educational environment, let's just say for a period of 2 years.
You're saying it backwards.
Went in and renovated and did the addition all at once. So yeah, you're gonna have an X value.
Correct, but you're stating it backwards. What I'm saying is, let's not identify the swing space first. Let's identify the dollars first.
That's exactly what I said. You would identify a dollar value compared to the current project cost, and that would give you then an understanding of what if you were going to spend the same amount of money, or maybe it's cheaper, what you would have then to spend on swing space.
Right.
I know, I understood. I can get you that number.
Yeah.
But again, I think you just have to realize that there may be a period of time to create the swing space. I mean, it's doubtful that a school or space exists currently that could educate middle school activities, science labs, the gymnasium, cafeteria, kitchen, all of those services for a middle school. I mean, honestly, if I was aware of a building like that, I absolutely would have pursued that more diligently.
Right.
And I'm still open to that opportunity to pursue that with you all. But I'm unaware that a building exists with those features that would allow Phil and his administration to run an appropriate middle school.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Scott, because I was just going to add that we have talked about this, and I think the reason why we tackled the two scenarios that are currently on the table for discussion is we've looked at that, and there weren't any opportunities for swing space or alternative teaching while we could renovate. But with that said, there are a few hands up on the virtual call here, so I'll go to Gary.
Well, I'm kind of taken aback by this conversation. I mean, if we can't name any possible swing space that we have right now, is it really worth talking about that? I mean, to me, it just seems, I mean, there's not any space in town that we'd be able to use for swing space for educational purposes for a year or two. I mean, I don't know. I'm taken aback by that suggestion. I just don't see it as realistic.
Justin, thank you, Gary.
So I'm not opposed to going down this route. I just think that we need to we just need to realize, and I think from what I remember from Scott saying, that anything we do for swing space, whether it's setting it up or renting, none of that gets reimbursed. So it'll probably cut down the timeline and save on the renovation of the whole school. I'm just kind of concerned with what else that would burden us as taxpayers on. I mean, it might be worth just a quick to see what the numbers would be, renting trailers or whatever else we could come up with, but that is my concern. Just how much money, extra money that we would assume as taxpayers that we would not be reimbursed for.
Yeah, and I
Thank
think the
you,
other
Justin.
consideration is, you mentioned things like trailers and all. The one thing that the committee, and certainly I know Phil would strongly consider, is safety. So anytime you're taking kids out of a building, going to portables, trailers, temporary configurations, there are certain safety concerns, educational concerns. How does that grouping of trailers or temporary classrooms, how does it really function? Are you shortchanging the students of Willington, for that period of time educationally? So it's not just a dollars and cents, but it's certainly also looking at the overall impact to the students and staff in the educational process that I think, we as a group would need to explore to make sure that that could be achieved at the same level that could be maintained in the other options.
Catherine,
Mike has his hand up.
Go ahead, Mike.
could I suggest that since pretty much everyone on this committee knows a good portion of this town well, and maybe some of us know the whole town well, that we would ask everyone on the committee to offer any suggestions they think are potential spaces or opportunities in Willington and email them to you, like within the next couple of days. That way, if there's something that some of us aren't thinking of, it could get into the thought process. You could forward that information to Scott. And if there seems like there's something that is really reasonable, that has an opportunity, then that leads to more conversation. Maybe that fits into the analysis of, and he can still cut out those costs very easily and show what the savings would be on the particular project timeline and cost. The caveat that it doesn't answer the question of what's the cost of the swing space. But at least then it would give people an opportunity to introduce their ideas, and we could see if there's something some of us aren't seeing. Because in my first sketch, thinking about Willington, I don't see a space where we can put 200 kids. That doesn't mean I could be missing something.
Right, and I just want to say, we did talk about this, early on when we were still discussing which options and how we were going to sort of mold how to present a new building, new site versus a renovation, alteration at the existing Hall School. We did talk about this at length. So I guess to Gary's point, I'm not sure, the question, I guess now it sounds like we just want numbers. We want to put numbers to it. And if Scott, if that's a quick exercise for you to come up with numbers, because I think that's what Peter is asking. And if that's the case, if it's not too much trouble, maybe we could get an update at our next meeting.
Absolutely.
Can I?
Peter? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, thank you, Erica. Well, I'm a bit disappointed at the immediate reaction of no, we can't discuss this. And I disagree with you, Catherine, respectfully, that
Of
we
course.
did discuss
right.
it. When I brought this up previously, it was a short discussion. The superintendent said it was not viable, and that was the end of the discussion. He is not a member of this, only member of this committee. And I think it's the committee's charge to explore all opportunities. That said, I'm going to betray my age here because I grew up in the baby boom era, and the community I lived in New Jersey, we were building new schools every 4 years as the population of the school just kept increasing. And there was a can-do spirit in the town I grew up in. And we made use of multiple facilities in town for swing space. And we didn't look for every educational specification that might not allow that use. Everyone worked together. And I guess I'm just highly disappointed that the approach here is how can we not do it? Because I think the people of Willington would more than pitch in And I can think of multiple opportunities for swing space if we all work together.
Please name one. Please name one.
One, Peter.
Well,
I'm disappointed that you're saying we don't want to have the conversation.
Well,
I
for
asked you to
one-
start the conversation,
Well, for
and you
one-
said, no, we can add it later
Well,
and talk
for
about it
one,
another time.
and
And you never asked to put it on the agenda, so,
I'm asking for it to be put on the next agenda,
yeah, and that's, I mean,
and I think that's reasonable.
and that's fine.
And I don't understand why, I don't recall anyone else asking for an agenda item ever, and then everyone demanding that the agenda item be explained the previous meeting. I
think
will
you're-
say, because you all seem determined not to allow discussion. And that follows the last meeting where you declared a member of our committee distrustful, which I think is in line with what James Marshall said at the end of the meeting in the third present to speak, where you're simply not working with the committee, you're not working with the community. The Board of Education and the superintendent seek the project they seek, and this committee has no input. That said, it's fairly obvious to me that we have 22 classrooms in center school.
You don't.
And I toured the building, Phil, that's what I wrote down in my notes. That's what you said to me.
I just counted the number if you want the number, Pete.
And we have 400 students total. And the bulk of the students are now in Center, not Hall. And there are other facilities in town. This town for many years had kindergarten operations in the firehouse. Wonderful location with a full kitchen, a big room. I'm sure Scott could find reasons why it's not educationally sound. But that's what a large number of Willington students, including my wife's family, experienced. We have an entire library that's underutilized, where there's lots of space. We have this facility where there's the space we're sitting in. There's all sorts of possibilities that we could explore if we chose to. If you're looking for reasons not to do it, because you're seeking a particular solution, I understand that. But I respectfully ask that be placed on the agenda.
Just to throw out, you want a suggestion for space? What about the old juries? What's going on in that building at this point? I don't know.
I didn't understand what you just said.
Jury's Tavern, he's suggesting Jury's Tavern.
Across from the hall, the
The
mill.
private facility.
Right, well,
I
let's
don't
put it-
know these, though.
Let's put it on the agenda for our next regular meeting. And there's a couple other people that have something to say too, so let's, if that's what the intent is to put it on the agenda, we can certainly do that and have a further discussion. Brianna?
Yep, that sounds good. Looks like we need to bring this up again when we get to item 9 on our agenda tonight. And Mike had that suggestion about sending some ideas of places that could possibly work, but in doing that, I think Scott might have, I'm sure we'll have some requirements for said space. For example, it has to be ADA compliant. For example, all of the programs need to be able to happen and work for all children. All 504s and IEPs are going to have to be followed within that space. So those are all a few things I can think of off the top of my head that are going to be requirements for a space that is recommended for this. So it's not just a big open room, but there are some things to consider. So I don't know how you want to go forward with that, but maybe we can talk about it again when we get to number 9.
Great, thanks, Brianna. There was one more hand virtually.
In the room.
No, there was someone virtually that had their hand up. I think, Gary, did you have your hand up again?
I think I'm good. Thank you very much.
All right, Erica, can you call on whoever's got their hand up?
I agree we should put it on the agenda for next time, but I would like the makers of the idea to bring, we have so many children, we need so many classrooms. If they could bring a plan where we could locate all of those spaces around town, I think that might give us something to talk about. But until we have that, I don't know that it would work.
Well, it's not going to be multiple
Catherine,
spaces.
if I may, and with all due respect, Peter, the superintendent is a member of this committee. He is a member ex officio, and I think he deserves the respect, a little bit more respect than you to write him off and the things that he says. He's not dictated any part of this process, but brought us information.
That's right.
And no one said we couldn't discuss this. I actually asked you, I thought this was the time to discuss, to bring some items forward. We could have discussion. It could have been added to this agenda tonight and we could begin the discussion. I'm not opposed to that. I don't know how everybody else feels. But I think it's important that we have a space, not multiple spaces, in which to properly educate our children. And, you know, what we did in the past worked in the time. Educationally, it may or may not work with current regulations and current situations. And I think it's important that we look at that.
Thank you, Erica. And in addition, if I can clarify, when I said that we have talked about this before, it wasn't implied that we can't talk about it now. I think we're in a different situation now because we don't have costs for that scenario. We did talk about it at length early on, and I just wanted everybody to know that this is something that we considered as a committee, but we never put cost to it. And Peter, you're right, we haven't. So that's something that we'll discuss at our next regular meeting, and we'll get costs from our owner's project manager to help with those, identifying that. Scott, did you have any other update for?
Yeah, briefly, and I'll just talk about the, the proposal to do some additional concept sketches, but I did want to just very quickly circle back, as there was one other question that Pete brought up that I don't think got a response. He had questioned whether a 3-story academic addition could be incorporated. The issue with that, again, is the number of spaces that need to be on the level of exit discharge, at grade. So the more you go up, we only have so many programs that aren't allowed to go on a 2nd or 3rd floor of a building. And right now, the governing factor is that approximately 21,000 square feet that we've identified that needs to be those means of egress at grade. So that's really the footprint. The 2nd story right now is 16,000 square feet. If you continue to go vertically, which you can, it just adds more circulation, stairs, more expense to an elevator and so forth. Now, again, in different sites, you might be able to get level of exit discharge on different areas coming out, multiple levels. In this case, you might be able to achieve that if you rip down the 1950s academic wing first. But again, if you rip that wing down, unless you vacate the building, you don't have enough classrooms. You're taking out 12 classrooms. You don't have enough classrooms in the building to make it function as a middle school. So really kind of the governing factor right now is that 21,000 square feet that we've, again, in the concept said, it can fit where the current septic field is, build the addition. That's kind of the governing factor. So you could go 3 stories, but it really doesn't, you don't have enough program space to go on upper levels to make a 3-story approach really worth pursuing at this point. The other thing, there was an email that I had sent around. I did, after the discussions of the last building committee meeting, Ralph and a few others were looking to try and get some further refinements or added development of some of the concept sketches, actually showing all of the program, classrooms, corridors, and so forth in plan. I reached out to an architect with Colliers Engineering and Design, Bergman Architecture, spoke to them, and I sent forward an email proposal. It would just be, again, concept plans. It would certainly take the development one step further. As we discussed, they would not be coming out measuring the building. They would not have any meetings with any staff programming. They would just look at it, try and creatively look at it differently than I have, come up with 1 or 2 options. They provided a number of hours that they felt for that task, and then any comments, additional revisions and things would be handled on an hourly basis. The total proposal for that was $13,000. Before I had a chance, again, just to put it in context, to talk with the gentleman who runs our educational division, he was already, napkin sketching $300,000 to $400,000 before I said, wait a minute, time out. This isn't a full schematic, exercise. So again, it's a pretty quick turnaround for them. After speaking with me, I think they understood the need to try and be as cost effective as we could in this exercise, but trying again to meet the request from the committee. So certainly that is in front of you. If you'd like me to get a amendment to our contract to execute that, I'm certainly happy to do so, but would just need direction from the committee.
Thank you, Scott. Does that conclude your update?
That does. Thank you.
All right.
Mike
thank
got
you.
his hand up in the room, Catherine.
Anne? Thank you.
Mike, you wanna go first? Or- okay. Is that for both schools, Scott, or for one?
No, they
Okay.
felt like they would do a concept plan or plans. I said, try and get creative, come up with, if you can, a second, another option within that time period. So they were going to do their best to try and provide two. Now, again, a concept plan for the new school. I don't feel, and again, I'm taking money off the table for my company, but I'm doing it because it's what you hired me to do is to not, spend your money wisely. Doing a concept plan on the proposed site with the available square footage, you're not going to have any problem fitting a building on that site. And we're estimating it based on current projects that have bid, historical data, based on the square footage it would cost to build a new building. So I don't feel that having a concept plan done for the new building on that site really brings any value. That's my opinion. Certainly, I will defer if the committee feels strongly about that. They're absolutely happy to do it for you.
So that price is just for Hall?
No, it was for both. If you read the email, it assumed a 1 week exercise. And again, it's sketching as far as Hall goes, sketching on top of the existing PDF documents. It's not measuring the building. It's not producing complete standalone architectural drawings, but it's sketching over the PDFs, just taking the concept plans to a little bit higher level of development, which would show not just the program spaces that were inserted into the existing Hall Memorial School, but how those potentially pre-K through, 4 classrooms, and then the relocated second through or 4, 5, and 6 would work as far as an addition.
So
Thank you.
Scott, with this scope of work, would it provide actually floor plans for? Because I saw the email and I see that there's quite a few exclusions. And so I'm really curious, what are we gonna get for $13,000?
You would get floor plans showing the boxes that are scaled with the room names and circulation and showing how those would attach to the existing building. It would show all program spaces. You're not going to have detailed toilet layouts. You're not going to have casework, and because we don't even know specifically what's going on in the classrooms necessarily. If it's an 800 square foot classroom, it's going to have an 800 square foot box off of a corridor, show your circulation, your stairs, your toilets, your program spaces in plan, and that would be it.
Okay, because the thing that sticks out is the proposal is for concept plans only and does not include elevations,
Correct.
renderings, interior development, furnishings, detailed rooms, layouts, or site development plans. So as far as the site development, are we to rely on what you've already provided us?
Unless you'd like them to take it further, yes, that is correct. Right now, the proposal was just for concept plans.
There are a few other exclusions. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to review them, if they have comments.
I don't have a problem with it. I think we should spend the money.
Anybody else?
Catherine, I think the proposal is very reasonable. If we choose to go forward with it, I think it could help in getting the understanding that we're seeking when this idea came up. And it also could help with the question that Peter had about 2 stories versus 3 stories. If we can look at this and see how these blocks, basic blocks, fit in to the footprint, then people can make their own sort of understanding or assessment from that point of seeing how it actually lays out and understanding how it fits on the property. And if we then decide to go forward, if the decision is to go forward with a renovation project and we go into a design, then it's much easier to take that that footprint or those blocks, and when you work with the actual designers, decide exactly what goes on what floor in greater detail, because that's part of that whole design process. You know, would be to dig in more and say, okay, if we use exactly this amount of space for this program, and we put it on this certain floor, and we use the grades in this certain way on the site, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty of what's gonna be level of exit discharge for sure. Right now, we are forced to, and it's appropriate that we're forced to be in some speculation. There's just no choice but to be speculative right now. So I think we're in the place we can be. This is an opportunity to dig in deeper if we choose to move forward with it. And it might help answer some of these questions that we're wrestling with.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Gary,
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Catherine, it's Ralph.
Hang-
Ultimately, we're going to have to sell this to the taxpayers, whichever direction this committee winds up going. The better and clearer the information presented to the public for both options, the better they're going to understand it and decide that they're willing to bear the cost. If we just present a blue box next to an existing school, I think you're going to have a very difficult time convincing people that this is a great school. This is going to be a great new facility. So I think this is a marketing tool, and I think we should move forward with it.
But I think if I might, Phil, again, I know there's a sensitivity to it, and so I'm just, requesting that maybe Phil chime in here that, is this an exercise just for the committee's eyes? Because again, I understand that there's concern within the district as far as sharing plans. So I'm not sure if this could be utilized as a marketing tool. That's not my decision, but I think Phil should chime in on that. That may change your thought process here.
And while he's coming on,
I feel like this is so early in the process, it wouldn't, like, I don't know what you know, but to me, these concept plans are nowhere near a finalized design, and they would not be the final design.
It's not about final design, it's about now.
What exists now.
Present design.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
about what is in the current school,
Yeah.
yes.
So if you're gonna take if he's just gonna take the box and redesign within the floors, go for it.
Right.
But you're not gonna do that. He's gonna do it over the PDF that exists of our current map.
So what would be shared with the community would have to black out what the existing school has right now.
You're providing, well, it depends on what they would develop. If they were gonna make brand new hallways, they were gonna make brand new entries, I think that if it's drastically different, but I don't know how you do that on top of a PDF. If you were gonna do the outline of the building and reconstruct from scratch, go for it.
Right.
But I was pretty clear in my email about the security of not releasing the layout of a plan, so someone has the ability to know exactly where do I enter the building to get to X classroom to do something bad.
Yep.
I'll lose my job over that. I will hold that, and I say that to all of you. I will fight for that tooth and nail because it's about kids' security and safety.
Peter has his hand up in the room, Catherine.
Go ahead, Peter.
I have a question for Scott. So if we proceed with this $13,000 expenditure to fully develop both scopes, new and reconfiguration, then would not the reconfiguration scope enhanced by this exercise be completely different from our current layout? And why would that be a security risk?
Again, it's because at least at the Hall School, and you're talking about showing apples to apples, but at the Hall School, I think if I'm understanding Phil, what we would at a minimum need to do is take any of the existing building, where the plans that you have that were transmitted under confidentiality and blacken those out. So anything that's the existing hall school, those 3 stories of the gymnasium and the existing hall school that you're using would get blackened out. And then you would have connections or new little boxes and hallways shown as new additions onto that. Now, I'll throw in one more thing that's going to change this up quite a bit. If you were going to vacate that building, it offers up a lot more opportunities for new construction, because you're not limited to trying phasing it in a way that you can keep the school operational and when you can tear down the academic wing. Again, the 2-story academic wing was being created to allow swing space to let the kids move in, renovate the existing building, and then after that, tear down the 2-story 1950s, those 12 classrooms. You know, if you could tear that down from day one, it offers up different design options. But there is no way to take those 12 classrooms off this building and not have something else built in its place to allow that to progress. So I think, you know, this didn't contemplate what you've been discussing this evening, which would be vacating Hall Memorial School in its entirety, and what could you do in that scenario?
Catherine, just a hypothetical, and this is for Phil. If we were to go with the new option, at what point in time do we show off our new school to the public? Or are we going to black that out in its entirety because of security concerns?
You're gonna have a significant level of additional security measures in a renovated, brand new building. If nothing happens as a result of this committee and Hall School remains the way it is, I will refuse to submit plans. I collect them back. Dave Harding was the same exact way as superintendent. She sat on the board. Every superintendent is not going to publish their plans to show you exactly what our school layout looks like. There's a school shooting every single day, Ralph.
I understand that, Phil, but
So you can lay out a new school, but when you have a double vestibule, you have bulletproof glass, you have security cameras everywhere. You don't have you have open areas to see. There's 1,000 security things you can do that change that don't exist in our current building.
I understand that.
That's so, yes, will the new building be there? Sure, you can see Mansfield's right now too. But Newtown's no different. But I guarantee you don't know all of Newtown's security features in a new building.
Now, in a reconfigured hall, we're going to have those security features, right?
Depends on what you do.
I think you may be misunderstanding it. I think you're misunderstanding this question. I think what he's saying is, once the school's done, are we gonna allow people to go in and see it, the townspeople?
I would hope so.
Yes.
Well,
but
no, I mean, that's
hope
your
we-
question,
I
right?
would hope we could see it before it's built.
we won't be
before we
handing
vote
out
on it.
maps.
Well, that's his answer, is they can't see the details of the blueprints. There has to be, some of the features have to be kept secret, because
Well, we
otherwise
start
you're
putting-
selling it.
right, we start putting this out
Understand.
there and we don't have a project, nothing has gone to referendum, or goes to
Right.
referendum, it fails. We've now given someone a roadmap into our buildings, and security is a real issue. We can't deny that. I sat for 8 years on the Board of Education, and multiple times we were handed a map of the school, only the members of the board sitting at the table, and then it was taken back from us. It was very clear that school safety was the foremost thought. And we could have conversations, but we certainly weren't keeping a map, and we weren't publishing it to
I understand.
the town.
And
But
if
so
you
we
went
use it
to-
in this presentation, Ralph, and nothing comes of it. We've put a roadmap out there for folks.
And Ralph, you can visit, but they wouldn't give you a copy of the map, when you go to visit the building. When we visited Tolland, we returned maps before we left the building.
All right, well, why don't we,
Has his hand up here in the room.
what's that?
Peter has his hand up.
Go ahead, Peter.
This is still not clear to me somehow, if particularly the Hall School is vacant, or even if it's not, if we have a reconfigured plan that's quite different from what we have now, how is that viewing that a security limit? security risk? It's not the same school, it's a completely different school, completely different layout, probably with no security features compared to what the new one would be. So how is that a security risk to view a potential plan? There could be multiple potential plans for new or renovated. How are those hypothetical plans a security risk? I don't understand that.
I think it's clear to me that there are portions of Hall School that are going to have to remain the way that they are. Not everything in that building is changing. And so any developed plan is going to include some of how it looks today without enhanced security features. Am I right in the understanding?
Yeah, I think, Peter, I think your answer is the box. You're getting the box. If they're going to take our plans and draw on top, and it's clear that it's the same exact hallway, and it's clear that they've used the same 8 classrooms, because that's the way the layout is currently, that's very clearly what Hall School is right now. If they're going to recreate from scratch with the building outline, and again, to Scott's point, this looks very different if it's gutted, and that's what Fryer said, the same thing. You can do a lot within that building if it's gutted, but you got to have the swing space to do that, right? And so that's where it changes it, but I would not support providing a plan to the public that very clearly lays out our architectural layout of that building.
We were to work on top of an overlay, Scott, of that shows only the outline of Hall.
In the floor, yeah.
I mean, that's workable.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that, Ralph.
And one thing I think that we should do, if Hall winds up being the option, is one of the first things on the agenda should be beefing up the security aspects of the building, because that's going to be part of the final product anyway.
Sure.
So you do that as early as possible.
There are very specific security measures that were put in place by the state of Connecticut in a guide that all designers need to follow. There will be numerous meetings with local fire, police, state police, all having to do with security. But you're correct in the standpoint that, for example, you mentioned Mansfield. Yes, the Mansfield plans were put out there to the public for the new building. However, we were very careful on talking about security and all of the security measures that were included in that building. Those were very closely safeguarded.
Thank you, Scott.
As they should be.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have this update from Scott on the cost proposals. The one thing I noticed was not included, and I'm not sure how much it would be to include it, Scott, would be the estimates, which I think was something that Ralph also asked for. It says the estimating or constructability evaluations is not included. I don't know how much more it would be to include that, but.
Well, I mean, I will modify the estimates apples to apples for what I've been doing. Again, it's going to be, square foot. You're going to see you're going to see plans with specific spaces, rooms, and that's going to equate to a building area again. I don't feel it's going to be very far off what is already within the ed spec, because you can only, you need so much circulation to support a row of 800 square foot classrooms.
Okay.
And the ed spec accounts for that. No, just saying that there isn't, we're not doing MEP, we're not, breaking this out. Again, these are high level concept plans. You're not going to get a detailed estimate that you might even see, at the end of a full schematic design, showing linear feet of casework potentially, or other systems, starting to get into specific finishes.
Yeah.
But
All right, thank you.
the level of development of estimates, whatever plans, additional plans are provided, I will, as part of my basic services, verify that those meet, are still match the budget, or will refine the budget to reflect those plans.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other comments on Scott's update before we go to the next item?
He has his hands up.
Who's that?
Peter?
Peter?
Thank you, Catherine. I apologize for spending so much time, but I felt that looking at Collier's proposal was important. I thought we'd have a lengthier discussion tonight. Scott, a specific question, and then I'd like to make a motion. You list advantages and disadvantages of both projects. I personally would like to see on the disadvantages for the new school, the cost of retiring Central School. I'm assuming you come up with a demo cost for that building. And-
I think, Peter, you've jumped into comments now on the presentation.
Okay, you want me to wait till then?
Yeah.
Oh,
Now, more specifically to your, what you sent us, again, on these advantages and disadvantages, shall I wait till that time?
Yeah, it's under new business, Peter. We're gonna open that up to,
And I'll get to my motion. If this is the appropriate time, I'd like to move that this committee approve the $13,000 to develop both scopes fully with the resources of Scott Pellman's firm, Colliers Associates.
Second.
discussion. I do have one friendly amendment. Peter, you said both scopes, I think you said. I'd like it to say both schools.
You and renovated,
Yes.
I accept that friendly amendment. Thank you, Catherine.
Second.
Okay, somebody had their hand up.
Gary.
Gary?
Thank you. Thanks, Catherine. Thank you, Peter, for the motion. I'm going to be voting against it this evening. I just don't think that there's a reason to spend this money. I think we have the information that we need at this point to get out to the town in terms of the two options. Certainly when this committee makes a choice on the options, that will be the appropriate time to me to really go all out to show actual conceptual drawings. But to me, I know it's not a ton of money, but I think every little bit helps. And I just don't see the reason for this expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Justin, did you have your hand up? No,
No, I didn't.
that's my cursor. Sorry. Anybody in the room have their hand up for discussion? Mike?
I appreciate Gary's comments and I think there's a certain sensibility to what he's saying, but to me, I think the overriding factor for me that I would support the motion is we wrestle a lot about in these conversations about what level is our due diligence. And that's not easy because of course, the taxpayers could make the best decision if they had a fully developed cost and a fully developed set of plans. But then we'd have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop two sets of plans and all that. So trying to find where the right time is to cut off on spending, to have done enough of the pre-decision work so that the townspeople can make a good decision is a challenge for me. And I think the way I'm falling on this particular motion is that this is a right amount of money to spend for due diligence. Again, respecting Gary's comments, some people might say you're throwing it away because you're going to do it all in design once you pick your option. I'm just afraid, particularly as I represent the Board of Finance on this committee, that we have to spend this money to make a good choice, to help the taxpayers understand what we're driving towards and make a good choice. So I guess that's my feeling on supporting it.
Thank you, Mike. If I may express my feelings on it, I appreciate your both of your comments and unique views on it. I think from a financial perspective, I'm not sure the exact dollar amount that we have left, but I'm not sure that we have the funds at this time, but maybe we're going to get them. So I'm hopeful that we will have the funds to spend on it. My biggest concern really is what are we going to get that is much different than what we currently have. And that's where I'm struggling with. If maybe the fact that they're not looking at the site piece of it, I'm real curious about the school coming in from Route 32 and having the school bus drop off. I'm real curious about that. I mean, I think I like what Scott has presented, but I'd almost like them to take a look at that as well. Again, I don't know how much more that would be. And then I struggle with what are we going to get? And if it's not substantial enough from what Scott's already produced, we've just spent $13,000 on something that's very close to what Scott just produced. So I'm kind of on the fence on this one.
Catherine, so I know, I don't know, Peter, you have a more current up-to-date, the last report, financial report I had a balance of 17,000 and some change. Phil has one from October 20th that is under 13,000.
And that's the one on our website. So it's on, it says, it shows 12/4/11. So I don't know if you need to change it to pending approval of town meeting
Well, and my
or
guess,
verification that we have the money. I don't.
right, I mean, my guess, Phil, is that one that you're looking at included the additional dollars we encumbered for Halloran and Sage, which were not on the original October 13th. And in my recollection is that we discussed getting the most up to date so that that's what we put out there, which
Halloran Sage was only $700.
we had approved, we had encumbered other dollars in votes that were not reflected in this. And part of my responsibility after that meeting was to clarify those items with the business manager, which happened.
Which I think was for legal and probably the second phase 2 environmental.
Yeah, and so Phil, you can report and run.
They say something wrong, but
This is dated 10/19.
I'm looking at 10/19, and I know that changed slightly, ever so slightly by a couple $100 tonight. We talked about it. Something happened since then.
So Phil's got one on his screen.
This is what's on the website. This is what I was told to put on the website. And so this is what I was looking at. So part one for me says the 12,411.90 is what's on here. I don't know what the difference is, Peter, between the two. I don't know that.
You can see the 4703 at the bottom, encumbered now for Halloran and Sage.
And then the second thing is town process, even though we already have a contract with Colliers. Do we have to get another quote?
Yeah, we got to increase their PO, right? It's,
Well, but it's a separate project. That's what I'm asking. Process wise, I don't know if we need to or not, or if it's an extension of their services and we're just
Yeah.
paying more.
yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know how the town does it, but I would think that if you can increase the PO by just to do a PO increase, can you do that on an existing
So
PO?
we approved a certain amount of money, Catherine, so I would say it's not just a PO increase. And I would say that
Be a whole new PO.
our procurement policy is one state approved, using a state approved vendor, or going out and getting 3 quotes. So one of those two has to be, has to qualify.
Scott Pellman, are you on the state approved vendor list for these services?
You have a state contract,
No.
there you go.
He's also hiring someone else, I believe.
How is this
No,
different? How is this different than all the other professional services Scott has rendered to us as our consultant?
Because we, part of the RFP that we put out included these services. And so it was part of the original RFP, the services. This is an addition to our original contract with him. This is above and beyond our original
Yeah.
contract.
What he's providing for us are owner project management services. It's not design or engineering. So I think that's what distinguishes it. He's not
I
doing,
understand. I understand.
yeah.
It was outside of the scope.
The other point I wanted to make was, in addition to what I was saying, was what if we get this result, these block drawings that show it in the footprint of Hall, and we need more. It looks like he's providing an hourly rate for us to go and spend more. And so I guess my question would be, at what point do we draw the line and say, okay, we've already spent 13,000, how much more do we spend to get what we need? And then who determines that, okay, we have enough to present to the public? I guess that would be the entire committee, right?
The answer to that is if the committee approves the motion, the 13,000 is our limit. It's a not to exceed. That's the answer.
And so we get what we get and don't get upset, right?
I would not be supportive of a motion to spend $13,000 that we don't have available to spend. So I think that's.
Well, that's
probably
another question.
That's the biggest.
And that was my first point. I wasn't sure what the balance was.
Yeah, and those numbers are accurate. That was with the things that we discussed at our last meeting needed to be clarified and adjusted. And that information was shared with our business manager and the updates were made, which is why you see the new encumbrance for Halloran and Sage, and it leaves us with an available unencumbered balance under $13,000.
What if the motion was not to
Yeah,
exceed $13,000 and contingent upon fund availability? And what that would do is allow us to spend something within this budget. And then if the townspeople approve the next group of money, then we could go to the $13,000 limit.
Are we asking them to start doing half a project? I think.
Well, it's $1,000. It's less than 10%. Or we could just do it for $12,000.
All right, we have Justin.
When we want to find money for things, we find it.
Justin, go ahead.
So can we even vote on this the way it stands? Because from what Erica was saying, Colliers isn't a state approved vendor, so we can't use that route to award the contract to them. So do we need to go out and get bids before we vote on this?
So here would be my point of view from the Board of Finance. I don't have a clear answer, but I know that in many situations like this, once you do a bidding process, that bidding process essentially gets you in the door. The question is, how much scope can you add?
Right.
That's really the question. These services are akin to the rest of the services that we're using. They're additional scope on the contract. So for example, the town uses a certain firm for accounting services, auditing services. And we will, when needed, we have added scope with them. Because we had already been through a bidding process, we used that bidding process and we added scope. I don't know that we added over $10,000 worth of scope.
Over 5,000.
Or over $5,000 worth of scope. I can't remember what it was.
I have it.
So from a policy point of view, I'm not sure exactly where we stand. We may have to check with Donna to see what is the appropriate, is it appropriate for us to extend this contract and add to it? Just as we envisioned, if we got more money from the townspeople and decided that we needed more hours from Scott, we envisioned adding to the contract. Does this fit the same parameters or not? And that's a question for Donna probably.
Also, I think the simple answer is that this is a different design / conceptual service. It doesn't fall within Scott's original RFP for owner's project management services. And so
He's already drawing conceptuals for us. We're just drawing more conceptuals.
Yeah, which really weren't part of my basic fee, but.
Right. So my point is that I think we'd have to have a RFP developed for design services for this and have it go out to bid. To Justin's question, Justin, were you asking as a matter of process? Can we vote on it tonight because it's not specifically on the agenda? Is that what your question was? Or are you asking about because we don't have funding?
I'm asking just to make sure we're following the correct process. If it's not a state vendor, are we allowed to do this and award the contract? I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, thank you for that.
Peter has his hand up.
Who's that?
Peter?
Peter, go ahead, Peter.
I'd like to speak to the motion if I may. I agree with Mike. I think it's important that we respect what came to us from the town meeting. They're expecting us to provide a twin track proposal of 2 separate projects. Just handing them these generic ed specs that we have a draft of and budget numbers, I don't think is very tangible, as Ralph has suggested, council. I think it's important, especially since we don't have a good track record of securing funding for our own committee, that we be able to present both projects clearly and coherently. And I didn't realize, I thought you have $17,000. My fault, not understanding what may have been encumbered since last time I looked at this, but I will contact the finance office in the morning and ask that question. And I don't understand it. I agree with Justin. I don't know how the motion can go forward unless, whatever Mike said, I didn't fully understand it.
I was spitballing.
Yeah, if we don't know that, I respectfully withdraw my motion because we need to know that, and this may have to happen at a future meeting. Unfortunately, it will not allow us to be prepared for our public input session, which seems regrettable to me.
Thank you, Peter. Brianna?
I understand the motion is withdrawn, and I was thinking that going into our town meeting, we'll have information about how our finances have been used thus far. Maybe it would behoove us to also provide some things we would like to use future finances for, and this could be one of those things to put on there, just to show our townsfolk where we're headed and to use Peter's idea for everyone.
Yes, and to your point, Brianna, that was in the request for the Board of Finance, what the future funds were allocated for. I believe we had legal and AE, architectural engineering services on there for future potential use.
Can that be added to it sounded like there was going to be a flyer or document at the meeting to clarify what's been used and what we will use. Can that be on there also?
Yeah, I think the report that they were going to do was generated by the town. We could.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to edit that report or at least add some language in there.
Catherine, can I know
Go ahead,
that
Erica.
it's been withdrawn. Peter, I just want to clarify, and you were CC'd on an email from October 20th, which was the date of the document. And it outlined the changes that I had mentioned in our meeting that we were going to adjust to make sure the report was right, which was from our August 3rd meeting, $600 for Halloran and Sage. Our September 7th meeting, an additional $103 for Halloran and Sage. And from our September 21st meeting, $4,000 from Halloran and Sage. At that point, Donna said she received the information, and the two changes were 4703 encumbered for Halloran and Sage, and a $5,000 invoice from Eagle Environmental was received and paid. No longer an encumbrance, it's now a transaction. And on that date, we were all given the October 20th. I just didn't print it out, put it in my folder, but we all received the updated document. So the one that Phil just shared on the screen is the most up to date. At the time was the most up to date, which showed a balance available of $12,411.90.
Thank you, Erica. Just to go back to Brianna's question, the report that we're going to share at the town meeting, can we edit or at least put some text on there that says the SBC will utilize these future funds for the following services? Can that be added to that report as well, so it's on one page?
Catherine, I don't think we should muddy the water with adding comment to the financial report from the town. I think that document should stand as its own piece of paper, just so there's no risk of confusion. And then we can either present another piece of paper or print on the back side of that paper in different font what we're proposing to do, or just do it in discussion as the presentation of the motion is talked about.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing, that the financial document is the financial document. We don't add to it.
Yeah.
And so we should discuss as a committee the additional things we would use the $100,000 for, and be very clear about it so that we could present those items to the public. Here's what we've spent. Here's how we believe the next 100 should be spent.
Okay,
You know,
Brianna.
at our last finance committee meeting, Scott had outlined some items that we would use $100,000 for.
Does that help, Brianna?
Yeah, thank you. Just trying to take off this hat and imagine going in as someone who's doesn't know all of these ins and outs so well. And what would help me? It would help me to know what has been already done and what the plan is for the future. So that's all. That will work perfectly. Thank you.
All right, great.
Hey, Catherine, can I make a suggestion?
Sure. Who's speaking? Sorry. Bill, okay, go ahead.
I'm trying to lay out two tracks, Peter. In track one, I think we need to have the town attorney weigh in to find out process. And if the town attorney says, to Mike's point, it's in line with the work that we're already asking, it's just an extension of the work, and the town attorney approves that, you could approve it at your December 16th meeting. Sorry. At your November, I'm off a month. Your November 16th meeting. That would then, I assume, Scott, 2 weeks development? You're muted.
But yeah, no, understood. Well, I mean, we'll have to look then to, to my consultant or my division of the company to see when they have staff available. So, they estimated that it would be a 2 week, period to get the things done. I can't say at this point if they would be able to start, the next day when you give them the, flip the light switch. But I would anticipate we could probably have them within a month.
Okay, so it would be 3 weeks and I'm giving you a little leeway and I'm taking a little leeway away, Scott. So it would be 3 weeks. That would mean we would, if it was Colliers, if it was approved on the 16th, assuming that the town meeting money is passed on the 14th, that would then give it to, we would then see it around our first meeting, December 7th. If the town attorney says, no, it's not an extension, that I'm seeing this, that we don't see it until December 21st, because we need to give
You'd
Scott,
have to put an RFP together. You'd have to advertise that.
right, and
Get
I'm
those
assuming,
back, select an
Scott.
architect. Yep.
that's my point, is that we would then ask you to do the RFP. I'm assuming this committee would approve it at their November 16th meeting. It would then have to be posted for 2 weeks. You would get your information. I think we would award on December 7th. And then 2 weeks later is your December 21st that someone could pull together in 2 weeks.
That's the fastest schedule.
So I'm kind of looking at two tracks time-wise to achieve that process. I just think it's important for us to understand what the time frame is.
And Phil, are you, when you said we award December 7th, are you saying that it could possibly not even be Colliers, right? Because if we're doing our, right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, award would mean whoever the most qualified bidder is for the lowest amount, I think is what it would be. And that's per town policy, right? If the town attorney says, no, this is just an extension of the funds and contract that you already have, then you could extend it on November 16th. I think that's so I had to visualize it, what the tracks would be and what it would look like.
All right, so who could reach out to the town attorney to get clarification on which track we have to follow regarding the
So
process?
that's Erica, and then if Eric, I guess this is the question then that was really in my brain that I never said, sorry. If the response from the town attorney to Erica says, it's just an extension of the project, all you need is the money, that means November 14th, if the money passes, then November 16th, we could approve it. If it is not an extension of the project, this committee needs to say, Scott, we need an RFP for November 16th. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think with that, Phil, I'd want the committee to chime in a little bit more on the exact scope. I did hear discussions of whether you felt you needed site concepts, utilizing town GIS. So I want a little bit more clarification. If we're going to put an RFP out there, I want to make sure that you're getting exactly what this committee wants. So I would say, maybe it's a matter of some of those thoughts go to Catherine and Catherine pull that together. I can then take that and put together an RFP.
Yeah, we should do it, I think, the same way we did the RFP last time, Scott, where there was a small subcommittee that just met to talk through things, make sure it's comprehensive, and then bring it to the full committee on the 16th. Whoever that would be, I think that would be easy enough to pull together, so you would get the information and then you could develop from there. That'd be my 2 cents.
Peter?
Could we get the opinion of the attorney quickly and then schedule stuff?
I will reach out to him quickly. I mean, I will reach out to him quick tomorrow, tomorrow.
That's why
I don't-
I assumed that, and then
Yeah.
whatever that is, can we just schedule a special meeting of this committee so we can get back to Scott ASAP for either track?
I think we don't have to have a special meeting. She could just tell him, if you agree, hey, if he says, no, it's not part of the process, we need an RFP, he's the guy that's gonna develop it. Then it's just a matter of who's gonna meet to do that. That's what that's my
So
thought.
I would think at that point that, I mean, Kevin could just make a task group.
Correct.
And if we had to get the whole committee together to review the scope and there was some time sensitive issue, then you call a special meeting for that one agenda item. You review the scope,
You
make
won't
sure
have it
everyone
done.
agrees.
You won't have it before the 16th, Mike.
I'm just saying, that's our only other option we'd have in between.
That's, I just think development wise for Scott and getting everybody together, I think the 16th is,
As optimistic as we can be.
that's my feeling.
I will reach out tomorrow, and as soon as I have a response, Catherine, I will let you know.
Perfect, thank you. All right, let's move on to the Community Outreach Task Group General SBC presentation. So as most of you know, we have been meeting over the last, I don't know, couple months to review and come up with a introductory presentation for the public. And they're not to be confused with the presentation that's happening on November 9th. That is a separate presentation. This presentation that I'm about to share with you is really just an introduction about the SBC and our committee and what we've done, how we started, and the tasks that we've accomplished to date, and to talk about the subcommittees and yeah, where we are to date. So I'm going to attempt to share. I apologize if I get kicked out. Phil, I might need you to open it for me, but
And if you shut off your camera first, that may help, Catherine.
I will do that. Thank you. The other piece of this is I want to say it was sent to everybody in the email. And we did get a few comments that I've updated already. So just give me a minute and somebody can just let me know if you can see it. That would be great.
Yeah.
It is.
All right, yay. All right, I'm gonna go through this fairly quickly, and then at the end of the discussion, if anybody has any comments or questions, we can discuss it. So when was it created? I know we've had a lot of discussion in past meetings. When was it created and why was it created? And SBC was created to define a pre-K through grade 8 school facility to meet Willington's educational needs. The SBC was created back in December of 2020, and the meetings began in 2021 of January. Members of the SBC, all of us are members of either representatives of the Board of Ed, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen's Office, Willington residents, teachers and staff, and of course, the school superintendent. And we also have members of our committee that have relevant field experience in construction and or engineering. And so if there's any information, there's a link here. These are all linkable. I checked them all. So we should be good to go if you want to see information about the members. And what is our charge? I'm not going to go through every single line, but this is the charge that we received from the Board of Selectmen's office. And the number one is our main charge, defining a pre-K 8 school to meet Willington's educational needs in cooperation with the Board of Ed. Let me see, funding finding and recommending a site if necessary, reviewing architectural plans, working with the treasurer and Board of Finance and other officials to secure funding and bonding for the projects, adhering to state statutes, and identify potential future uses of 2 current school buildings. So this is all part of our charge, and it can be found on right here on this presentation. And what have we done so far? So we've established future meetings, signed a chairperson, that's the obvious. We reviewed school building committee work, facility studies from 1990. We've hired an OPM. We've reviewed an early narrowing of options. We've toured new facilities, pre-K through 2. We've also toured existing hall and center schools. We've conducted site visits. We've been working on due diligence during this entire process, and we requested and secured funds for SBC tasks from the Board of Finance and town meeting. We've had meetings with OSCGR to review the funding process. We've done published articles in Willington Wire and on the SBC website. We've hired an attorney. We've hired an enrollment expert. Environmental phase 1 studies have been done, obtained an appraisal on a new site and held discussions. So those are just, I mean, there's 19 items, but we've certainly done a lot more in this committee. But it's definitely a good touch on what we have accomplished so far. As I mentioned, we have 3 subcommittees, and these were identified early on in our meetings. And the first one was, how do we communicate all of this information to the public? And so we created the communications subcommittee with Phil and Ann. And so the goals here are to build connections with the community members, provide timely and accurate information to the stakeholders. And how we do that, we've done it through our Willington Wire, our Facebook page, digital backpack, emails, the school websites, etc. Another subcommittee that we had, I know this one might be a little hard to read, but again, this is published on our website and Facebook, and you'll have a way to access this presentation and take a closer look. But primarily with this subcommittee, the purpose was to research and gather and evaluate all of the existing and potential new sites for a potential consolidated school, pre-K through 8. And so far we've done 3 major tasks, or visited multiple town-owned properties. We went through a series of all the listed town-owned properties and had some criteria that we looked at and narrowed it down. We also visited the existing and hall center school site. And these are the existing schools, as you know, and it really was an eye-opener to see the condition of our existing schools and the potential that we may be able to implement into a renovation. And then, of course, we looked at potential new sites. Okay, our subcommittee for finance. This committee was put together to evaluate the costs related to the consolidation of the 2 existing schools. And the task for this subcommittee is mainly to provide us an update of expenditures, as you saw tonight, Board of Finance involvement and representation, and then identify potential cost savings as a result of consolidation. And of course, what is the impact of the town taxes to our residents? So these are all things that each one of these subcommittees have been working on over the past couple of years. And just some basic state funding, educational specs, and enrollment study definitions. I won't go through those, but one thing I do want to point out under the state funding, depending on the status of a project, new or renovation, the state has reimbursement rates. And the ones that are published here for Willington are 53.21 for renovation and 63.21 for new construction. As Scott alluded, as Scott alluded to previously, there are some formulas that have to be considered with this, with these rates. So it's not just that flat rate. There's definitely a lot of caveats that have to be considered as well.
I think they're backwards though, Catherine.
I'm sorry.
I think they're
Backwards.
backwards though. The reimbursement's 63.
All right, we're not here to correct this, but I will check it, okay, before it gets, I specifically looked very closely on this, so I will double check it at the end. Thank you. Ed specs, this is a definition of what the ed specs really are. Description of educational activities that'll be supported by the building, and types of spaces which accommodate the program and requirements. And there's more information on the Connecticut website too, the state of Connecticut government website. And then the last thing was the enrollment study. It's a process that evaluates and predicts the number of students enrolled in a school in a certain period of time, which we did conduct that study. Each one of these items are further defined and are going to be talked about at length in our November 9th presentation. And then a few milestones. The more immediate ones is the public outreach sessions. So we anticipate having multiple sessions, this being one of them. The one next week is another one. And these will go through March 2023. Anticipated referendum would be sometime in March. And then the submission deadline for grant application to get funding for either project, whichever one we end up going with, is June of 2023. Engaging the community, as I mentioned earlier, there are multiple ways that we're doing that. Through public meetings, question and answer sessions, community outreach presentations, present to speak, Willington Wire updates, Facebook announcements. I didn't put the school website on here, but it's also posted on the school website, Willington Public Schools. And so our meetings are found, if you just click on this link, it's on the town website. We meet every first and third Wednesday of the month at 6:30. And that's also where the agendas and the meeting minutes are posted. And I believe this is the last slide. So it's really just trying to get the information out there for everybody, a link to the Facebook page, YouTube videos for the meetings, the public folder that has a series of documents, OSCGR, link, Board of Ed, SBC meeting videos, and frequently asked questions. So I'll just jump back to the beginning. I think I'll stop the share so I can see everybody. I'll open up the floor to see if you guys have any questions. I will take a look at that, and maybe Scott, you can check that for me.
Yeah, the comment was correct. They are switched. It's renovation is the higher number, new construction is the lower number, 53.21, 63.21.
Okay. All right, I'll make that change. You might want to check the presentation too that we have, because I think I took it from there.
Catherine, if I could comment.
Yep, go ahead,
A lot of work went into that, and I think it's great. I know there was discussion about a video, so, you know, are you not making your acting debuts, fellas?
Well, so there was, so the last comment Catherine made was, to me, was she wasn't sure if it was necessary, or if it would create time constraints. The last thing I need is another project. I have done it once through already for myself to test it. And so it is doable. I could probably have it done tomorrow. I promise I'll wear nice clothes.
Yeah, I think we were feeling like, you know, this
To you,
really,
Catherine, or to the committee, whether we want to do it. The original discussion was surrounding sort of what Phil did a couple of years ago when he announced us sort of going back to school with what our COVID precautions would be. And because that was a hot topic at the time, it created some buzz around it. Be on YouTube, 7 PM Thursday night, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And the YouTube was presented that night and then forever available after that, or maybe not forever.
So,
And so if that would help with getting more people to watch it and it makes it more palatable to have it narrated, great. If this committee doesn't think it's really worth the effort, I'm happy to not have another project.
So I don't mean to add projects to you because I can respect that it adds another level. I think there is something to be said for not just words on a page. And something to jump out at the people to interest them. And then there are others who would rather have that written document to refer back to. But I think, hearing us speak about it sometimes can generate just a little bit more buzz and catch a different view.
My
So
hope
I
is it
think
would
we'll
make
be
it
right.
just a little more personal too,
Yeah.
because some people might feel if whoever, whether it's me or anybody else, is reading it to them, they're actually presenting it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
so-
maybe for some people that has value.
Yeah, and I think there is, it's another eye-catching piece than just us throwing more information.
But
on-
I would
on
not,
paper.
I would not be in, similar to how Phil did, I would not be in full video more than maybe just an introduction. Then it would be the full screen of the presentation that I would sort of narrate, not every single word either, because no one wants an entire PowerPoint read to them,
Right.
word for word.
And so essentially, we did talk about originally doing a YouTube and having it presented. But as we got closer into the final steps of this, and as the other presentation that was coming up behind us with more detail, that definitely would require, and I think be more effective if it was presented and have a discussion. I think this presentation was really an introduction to the school building committee. And if anybody on the call has been following us for the past 2 years, I think they probably already knew half the stuff that was spoken about tonight. So I don't know if there was any new information that was presented in this presentation. So I don't think it's necessary to do a video on it per se, but if the rest of the committee would like to do that and somebody wants to volunteer to do a video, we can certainly update it and reissue it. But currently this presentation is out there. It's on the Facebook page. It has been published. So we really felt like it was important to get it out there so that people at least have the proper resources and the information about what we've done to date. There has been a lot that we've done, and in putting this presentation together, it makes you realize, wow, we've really accomplished a lot.
Catherine, could I just ask a point of clarification? Did you say this presentation you showed us tonight is already out?
Yes.
I thought that was gonna come back to the meeting to be approved.
I did too.
No, it does. This one does not need to be approved. It was a task group.
Wow.
Well, no, a task group means you're not holding meetings that the public is attending. That says nothing about whether the product would be shared publicly. with the whole group.
Mike, we followed the same process that we did for the RFP task group. We had a task group on the committee where we developed an RFP. We brought it to the SBC for review, but they never approved it. We brought it for review and we used that as part of the RFP. We discussed this in our last meeting too, that it was not something we needed to vote on. And it was sent to everybody a week ago. So I think I got a few comments from people and I did update it for everybody's comments.
I appreciate that, Catherine. I think I was under the understanding that when you had compiled the information, it was gonna go out, so I didn't think we were.
Okay, maybe
approving it.
that's a misunderstanding on my part.
But we definitely need to make sure, if it's out there, that we make that very critical adjustment as quickly as possible. So if those numbers are definitely reversed, so.
And there are some spelling and grammar errors in there too.
I did agree with you. But the content of it, I'm totally in agreement with it. It's all the information we had out there.
We all contributed a lot
just
to it,
waiting
and I
for
think it's a
your-
good product.
YouTube, TikTok successes, so, but. you know.
And let's not,
I'll have to wait a little bit longer.
I think it's clear that
Let's
the
not
best thing
forget
for us
what
to
the
do is move
goal-
on.
let's not forget what the goal was.
No, I think.
We
it's great.
wanted to introduce what this committee is all about, who we are, how often we're meeting, how to get information. I believe that's what the original intent of this was.
And what we have done to this point, which it does do.
It does.
So,
Thank
I
you
mean,
for
we
your
could,
work
we
on it.
could pick it all apart all day long. But again, it's critical to get this information out there so people have it and they can start, asking the questions that they want to ask. And yeah, and again, I do feel like the next presentation on November 9th is going to be a lot more detail, a lot more questions and answers, interaction. And that one will be videotaped, and that one is going to get published via a YouTube video. So, and this one too. I mean, we could just use this meeting minute as the presentation for it.
Hey, Catherine, it's Phil.
Hi, Phil.
Hi. Mike, I'm sure you'd rather not do this, but we have to correct it and repost it anyways. And I think in our push for just trying to be in the face of people right now to promote our November 9th meeting, if you have the ability to do this tomorrow as another push that we can push out to people on Facebook to say, and if you didn't want to read the PowerPoint yourself, here's a narrated version. I would think that'd be great.
It's up to the board.
I'm good with that.
I mean, if you truly think you can do it like Snap, it's,
I think I can have it done by the end of the day tomorrow.
because it's just through a Zoom and you're self-recording it, right? I mean, it's how you're doing it. To me, Catherine, that is just another way. If someone doesn't want to read our stuff, it's narrated. Here's another way you can look at it.
Yeah, the last time I did it, I actually used PowerPoint. You can record it and narrate it right in PowerPoint. It creates it into a video, and then you can just click convert it to YouTube.
You're doing it, you do it however you want.
Yeah.
If I can figure out how to do it
Mike,
again.
Go,
if you
Mike.
could send it to us tomorrow, I'm sure Phil can republish it. I see Ann has her hand up. Go ahead, Ann.
We also have to be very careful that the two do not get confused, because if they watch that, we don't want them to miss November 9th.
No, that's,
Well, and I think that should be said in it.
Okay,
yeah.
That could be the last thing at the end. Please attend the presentation November 9th.
And Mike, sorry, I
Okay.
think I posted on Facebook, but I did say, this is background information for the November 9th meeting.
that's well said.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah, Peter has his hand up.
Go ahead, Peter.
Captain, thank you. I was under the same misimpression that Mike was, that we would have some final input on this, and I understand that it's done and out now.
Wait, could you repeat that? I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said. You said Mike did not have final input on this?
No.
Just be a little bit louder.
Let me say that again. I was under the same impression Mike was, that we were gonna have a final input on this before it went out. I understand now it's out. I think you guys did a great job. I'm very pleased with it. I have one minor suggestion, if this is being resubmitted with corrections, and that is on the members of the SBC slide. Looks like there's plenty of room to me. Why can't we list ourselves as members? Catherine, you just said it's important for people to know who we are. And in this annoying government-y kind of way, we say, go to the website to find out. I don't think I'd be too pleased.
Actually, there's an answer.
There actually is a reason for that, Peter.
Don't tell me it's security.
No.
No. There's a reason for that, because this presentation is going to be a static document, right? And so if we were to list all the members today and 6 months from now it changes, then the most current information is going to be on that website. And that's why I pointed them to the website. I understand your point. But I'm also wanting to get the most accurate information, and that website will have it.
We've had changes to date. This is not the same committee we started out with exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
True. Thank you. Government wins.
And that's actually the same reason why a lot of those links are on there. You'll see, like our meetings. If I were to say, the dates or whatever, and then something changes, now that presentation is no longer accurate. So, but I understand your point. Any other comments on this before we move on? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, educational specs update. Phil, do you have an update for us?
I'll be quick. So the ed spec draft is out. It went to the committee. The full Board of Ed has it. It's posted as a draft on the website. So it's out there. I also have sent it to 2 local professionals who are taking a look at it for us and expecting their feedback prior to the Board of Education meeting on the 8th, yes, November 8th. And I anticipate the board voting on this on November 8th. So if anybody has any final feedback, get it to, you can send it to me via email and I will share it with the board, or you can share it directly with the Board of Ed for their meeting on November 8th.
Great, thank you. All right, new business. Does anybody have any comments about the update?
Catherine.
Yep.
My brain is firing. I'm sorry. The dates did this to me. Before we move on to new business, I'm just processing the letter of intent, and without going into conversation, to be able to, unless the committee feels differently.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda and actually.
No, which is why I want to bring it up, because I'm not sure if we should put it on the agenda to talk about process. Because if it's not on the agenda to approve it with the last modification, which the committee would see.
Yep.
Then it really shouldn't be part of the November 9th presentation. And so we could probably do that without executive session. If we just shared what the one change was.
Yeah, it's
The
unfortunately.
committee wanted to see the whole letter of intent all over again.
Right.
To approve it, and that would be, approve it means the landowner could sign it and the town could sign it.
Yeah, I think we'll have to have a different discussion under executive session, Phil. It goes a little deeper than, it's not that simple.
Okay, so do we need to add, make a motion to add executive session to discuss that?
Not to tonight's meeting, but definitely our future meeting.
And we have to take it off the November 9th presentation.
I agree.
Oof.
I would rather discuss it tonight and be able to present the entire picture on the 9th. I would make a motion that we go into executive session tonight to.
You gotta add it to the agenda first. You're gonna make a motion, you gotta make a motion to add to the agenda.
Okay.
Correct.
So can I just make a statement before you do that? So there's additional information that's being requested. And so we don't have that information as an update. So if we go into executive session, there's not going to be anything to discuss other than they asked more questions that we need answers to.
All right, so then.
Unless it's something else, unless you want to talk about the process.
No, I didn't know that part, so I guess.
Phil, it literally just came in.
Okay. Should we then try and schedule a special meeting if we're going to try to approve it? If the information going back and forth between you and the party or the attorney and the party is in a position where both parties agree, should we try and have a special meeting prior to November 9th? Because I really do feel strongly that we need to get the information out there that night.
Yeah, we could do that. It just
Makes sense to people. It would be one item on the agenda.
Right.
So
I just don't know when I'll get that other information. So I mean, we could try to schedule it for Monday night.
I have a question, Catherine. So a couple things. I can tell you there's a Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday. It's a pretty full agenda. I don't know. I definitely am out. Tuesday night is the Board of Ed meeting. And then our presentation is Wednesday. Is there information you can share with the committee this evening that could at least give the committee some insight and potential preparation for action? You have some new information that the committee isn't privy to. Is there an appropriate manner in which to speak about that now?
Yeah, we could do that. We just, there wouldn't be anything to vote on. That's all I'm saying.
Would that affect the letter of intent,
Yes.
that information?
Here, so we already have a motion. The motion was made to add executive session to the agenda. Did anyone second it? I don't know, Catherine, did you
No.
catch?
No.
Okay, I'll second the motion for discussion.
Peter has his hand up.
Peter?
This is concerning to me because we didn't warn on our agenda that we would have an executive session.
Right.
That's probably not a good idea, even though I'm anxious to know what these additional things are. I don't know if it's appropriate to do that.
Well, I think we agree it's not gonna lead to action. So it's really the purpose of an update. I'm not sure what the right answer is.
6 PM on November 9th in executive session, you come out and you make an announcement of the pending, if the person has signed the paperwork, right? If they've signed the letter of intent and you agree with it all that night, then it's just a simple matter of the town signing it and it's already going and we can leave it to presentation.
Sounds good.
They've been going back and forth with the attorney. That's the only way you can do it.
How could this committee agree to something that was already signed?
Well,
Right, so I think there's a little bit of backwards there.
Absolutely, because
Right.
just because the landowner agrees to it doesn't mean the committee will. But if the attorney and Catherine are going back and forth, who's been doing the work with Mike, right?
Yeah.
Then it's not official until two parties sign it.
right, so if the other party signs, the committee approves it, then the town can sign. Whoever's authorized.
Correct.
Can
So,
sign
can I-
the other side of it.
Point of order,
And then
the
it
motion is to put an item on the agenda,
Right.
and so
Okay,
we
yeah.
should just watch.
So
our
let's back it up a
discussion.
little bit.
I think to Peter's point, is it appropriate? It's certainly allowable. Is it ideal to add something to an agenda? No, but it's not inappropriate. It is allowable to add an item to the agenda. That was your first comment, that, you know, whether or not we could, and certainly it's an option of the committee as a whole, so.
I'll be happy to share it. If we go into executive session, I'll be happy to share the update that I received. But I don't think it's going to result in a vote of signing the letter of intent, which I think is what Phil's original point was, is that are we going to have a letter of intent before we do this November 9th presentation? Because I think there was some information that we're sharing with the public at that time. So I think that's where this all began. So if you guys choose to go into executive session, I'd be happy to give you the update and then we can go from there, or we can put it on the November 16th update and maybe have a vote on November 16th. But I think what Phil is saying is that might be too late.
I feel strongly that we should resolve this issue before the November 9th presentation.
That was my point.
Right.
So whether we do it
So,
tonight or we have an extra meeting, but
I would suggest a separate meeting. Because I mean, again, like I said, I'll be happy to share with you the updates that I got from the attorney, but nothing can be solved right now because it's basically asking for more information. But if you want to have a special meeting, we could do that too. Whatever you guys want to do.
so again, my point of order is that the discussion should be on whether or not we're adding something to the agenda, not about the agenda item.
how do people feel about going and hearing about it tonight and then having an additional meeting to vote on it when whatever the issue has been resolved?
I vote for doing a special meeting and not putting it on executive.
Do you want to
session.
end discussion and take a vote?
Well,
On the motion, there's a motion on the floor.
no, I don't want to end the discussion. I'd like to speak. I want to know too what Catherine has to say, but I'm highly uncomfortable with not putting on our agenda for the public that we are going into executive session and then doing so. Thank you.
And so we have a motion on the floor for putting executive session on the table tonight. Let's take a vote
On the agenda
on the agenda. What did I say?
table.
Sorry. All right, so we have a first and a second for adding the executive session agenda item. Let's take a vote. I'll do a roll call vote. Peter, why don't we start with you?
And
I'm sorry, it was cut up. Nay?
Hey.
Okay, Ralph,
No.
Erica.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Abstain.
She abstained.
Abstain, okay. All right, Brianna,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Justin,
Abstain.
Anne, I don't know if I got Anne's vote, but I'm assuming Anne, okay, so she's a yes. All right, Erica, you were abstain. Now I just gotta count here.
You vote, Mike? Mike did vote.
Mike, sorry.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 yeses, 1, 2 abstain. And I think 1 N.
Who knows?
Who knows?
2 noes, sorry. So motion carries. We'll add the executive session.
Hold on. You need 2/3 vote for this.
For example. For
No,
an
to add
agenda
the
item.
item to the agenda.
I believe you need 2/3 vote to add an item to the agenda.
Wow,
So it goes down.
is that Robert's rules?
It is.
Okay, then in that case,
Am I,
Motion
of nine,
fails.
5 of 9 is not 2/3.
because who left?
Nobody left.
2 extensions.
There were 2 abstentions.
Yeah.
We have a 11-person committee,
And you don't vote.
so 10 votes.
Should be 10 votes.
I heard
You missed
5.
somebody or somebody's missing?
Or there were 5 yeses, 2 noes,
And
2,
two
what,
abstentions.
1, 2,
2 extensions.
3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 yeses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You voted yes, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, there were 6 yeses, so motion carries.
There you go. Thank you.
Just gonna say, count everybody again. 1, 2.
All right.
Chris, Brianna, Gary, and Catherine. So there's 4 on the screen, 2 in the room that were yes.
So we have
I don't want to be accused of doing something wrong.
Understood.
Okay. All right. So motion carries. We're adding the executive session. So I guess we go into that now or?
What's left on our agenda? I don't have it in front of me.
New
Yeah, the
business.
next item was just to discuss the public presentation. And that one was emailed to everybody. And I think this was on the agenda just to see if anybody had comments. Clearly, we need to check the percentages on that presentation as well.
There, hang on a second, Catherine, let's get our agenda in order here. Where are we adding the executive session in the agenda?
Should have been in the motion.
New business, can we put under new
New
business?
business B?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda was the public presentation that Scott and Phil had put together and is going to be presenting on November 9th. It was emailed to everybody. I know I had offered some comments. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to review and offer comments, but we do look forward to receiving those. If you want to, I think, Peter, you had some specific comments about the presentation. I think now would be a good time to collect those comments and share them for Scott to edit.
What I wanted to look at were the pluses and minuses of both potential projects and what Scott had outlined. In the new school project, I wanted to add as a minus the potential retirement and demolition cost of Center School. That would no longer be needed if we have a new school. It's a real cost to the community, regardless of what happens. Also, any movement from the two former buildings in the new school of the logistics of all that furniture and whatever is moved into the new building, that potential project, that cost should also be identified in the minus part of the ledger.
Peter, the budget anticipates in either option, new furnishings. You know, the furnishings are quite old. Normally, when you build a new school, 21st century learning, new desks offer different configurations and way to educate students. So there are opportunities to donate the furniture, which is a wonderful thing. So any serviceable furniture gets donated, goes off to third world countries. But currently, the budgets for all options anticipates new furnishings.
Thank you, Scott. Anything else, Peter?
On the renovation potential project, I thought a plus that was overlooked, a couple of pluses were overlooked. One was the historical legacy of the Hall Street site and the fact that this is an important place in our town's history, and a project that's centered around that would have some real advantages. I recognize that may be meaningless to many people who have only recently come to Willington, but I think a lot of people in Willington feel strongly about that site, our connection with the Hall family, a foundation that continues to be a benefactor to the town as we speak. Something I don't think this committee has ever recognized. And along those lines, for the 1922 facility, I think a plus would be potential access to state and federal funds for restoration of that portion of the facility. I think there's already been some opportunity identified there by Ralph that I'm interested in learning about more on the finance subcommittee.
Anything else, Peter?
No, Catherine, you can cut me off now.
No, I didn't cut you off. I'm just trying to,
I'm done.
I can't hear to myself. One thing I'd like to add as a negative to the renovation, and I don't think I included this in my comments to Scott already, is the restriction on the existing deed for Hall School.
The what?
The restriction on the existing deed.
Yeah. And why is that a negative?
Because the townspeople are going to be investing a lot of money into renovating a building that we don't technically own 100% of in all aspects. There's a restriction on a deed that I personally am concerned about, that I think should be rectified in some way, shape or form, if we do entertain this as an option.
And, okay, let's speak about that just for a moment here. The commitment, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're still here.
Well, Ralph, listen, we're not going to argue about people's, we didn't go back and forth on the things that Peter brought up. So this, right now, we're collecting comments from what people want to change the presentation. So we're going to add some pluses and some negatives. And so I'm trying to keep this meeting in order. So if we can kindly get the rest of comments from people on the presentation, not why I added it.
Catherine, if I could, to Peter's comments, I think the abandonment of the buildings could be a negative, but to say a demolition, we've identified no future use of buildings, so we haven't identified that we wouldn't sell it. So to identify the cost of the demolition of the building, I think is a little bit premature. It's a possibility, but it's not a known at this point. So the town has not determined what that use would be. I have mentioned that there would be dollars requested once again through CIP to do a facility study so that we can help determine that. So I think it's a disadvantage, but to the demolition of a building, no one has identified that as a done deal.
So maybe it just gets reworded to possible demolition or
You
something.
disagree that we've decided to demo a building?
Yes, I do.
Who's decided we're demolishing the building?
Well, I'm not gonna have a cross conversation.
Right, yeah,
But
yeah, let's
I
just
think
take
it's
the,
reasonable to identify potential costs. That's Scott's job. I don't think that's unreasonable.
yeah, and that was documented on here. The cost for vacating existing school, that's on here. So Justin,
The only thing I had, we did talk about the possibility of center school being a surplus of money if it was sold to a developer or something also. And on the deed, I thought we had worked out with the Hall Foundation that they were willing and would amend the deed to be whatever we needed to go proceed forward with the renovation. I understand it's a negative because we have to deal with it, but I don't think it should be like a showstopper.
no, that there is a cost impact to dealing with it. And maybe I should have added cost to that piece, just like with the disadvantage of cost of vacating any existing school. Yeah, so restriction on existing deed for hall, cost implication. But to your point about the Hall Foundation, we did have conversations with them, but no action has been taken on any of that legal piece of it, so. Gary?
Thank you. Just a question. Wouldn't taking center school offline or finding something, another repurpose for center school or demolishing it or whatever it might be, isn't that true for both options? Am I missing something? Is that already on there? Is that why we didn't say that?
I think it was only listed on one.
It's only listed on one and Peter wanted it added to the other, is that right?
Well, that's entirely incorrect because Hall School would revert back to the Hall Foundation in the event that we elected not to pursue a project there.
Right.
Sadly,
Right.
we would not be returning it in the same condition we received it.
No, right. I understand. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying no matter which, if we choose to renovate and expand Hall School, or we choose to build the new school, or the town does, we still have the same issue with center school is what I'm saying. So that should be, in my mind, a negative for both columns. And I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize if it's already on one of them. I just want to make that point.
I believe it's only on one option.
Yeah, you're correct. And I guess I would then say that if it's a negative for both, this is trying to identify positives and negatives between the two selected options. If it's a negative for both, I think we probably just take it off the negative for option one. It shouldn't list it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know if Peter would agree, but I do.
Any other comments regarding the presentation? Okay, hearing none. Gary, you still have your hand up, just to FYI. So let's move into executive session. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to go into executive session to discuss, I guess, potential real estate transactions, whatever that statute is.
I think it was a letter of intent that.
Same thing.
Move Scott.
And if you want anyone else who's on the committee, you have to add that to your motion.
Gary, did you want to revise your motion or amend your motion to include Scott Bellman from Colliers?
I would like to, yes, thank you.
All right, is there a second? I don't know if I saw a second.
A second, Ann.
Ann? All right, and then do we do a discussion or we just go right into, we take a vote?
Discussion.
Discussion? And then we vote. Brianna, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Are we offering discussion or no?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to say that for me, the purpose of this executive session is to make sure that when we meet with our community members on the 9th, we have the most present, up-to-date information as possible. So by us jumping upon what we can work on tonight and then finishing it hopefully prior to that November 9th meeting, that's why we're doing this executive session now, is to get the most up-to-date information to our community members on the 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, Brianna. So I think we got a first and a second. Let's take a vote to go into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays?
Nay.
Nay. Anybody else a nay over there?
Ms. Ross and Peter?
Okay. So we'll do a roll call. So Peter,
Okay.
Ralph,
No.
Justin,
I'll abstain again.
Erica, Brianna,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I'm a yes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses, 1 abstain, 2 noes. So motion-
Mike is yes.
You did.
Mike.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. All right, 7 yeses. All right, so we'll move into executive session. It is now 8:52. Phil, if you could pause the recording.
Yep. and
Start
give-
moving.
Okay, we are now back from executive session. It's 9:28. We do have a couple more items on the agenda. Future business, items for future agenda. I think earlier we spoke about having an item, I think it was one that Peter brought up. Let me just go back to my notes here.
I have it, Catherine.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda. I think it was about the cost of the potential if we had to vacate center or hall.
Renovate hall with no students.
And no, it was about the swing space option.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Can
Were
we
there
add?
any other items for our future agenda?
I have, can we add, we talked about the need for multiple public sessions, right? We know we can't reach everyone in one meeting. And so can we, at our next meeting, begin to set a timeline for what those meetings would look like?
Yep, we can add that to the agenda.
Thinking like a traveling road show.
Well, the
You know,
thing
we go to
is-
the senior center, we put them where people are at, so.
Our
Any
first public exchange is going, we may not get any comments. People are going to absorb this information, but they may not have questions till after they leave.
Oh, no, I don't disagree, but we need to have multiple public, because we're not gonna reach everybody in that one.
I
So
agree with that,
regardless of
too.
their questions, we know we need to give people multiple opportunities to hear this, because everyone isn't going to come on Wednesday night and be online. So we need to have multiple sessions. We need to hear from as many people as possible.
And again, but like I was saying, sometimes the presentation one night elicits questions that
absolutely.
can't be answered that night.
Thank you. Any other items for future meetings? Okay, let's move on to present to speak. If anybody's hung on for now, I want to thank you. If you do want to speak, just take yourself off mute and we'd love to hear from you. Looks like we have a couple people outside the members. If you'd like to speak, just take yourself off mute. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, hearing none. It is now 9:30. Can I make a motion to adjourn this meeting? All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Any nays? Abstentions? All right, meeting adjourned. It's 9:31. Have a good week, guys.
Good evening.
Thank you.